Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Halton Hills housing update. So last week I was on vacation, so I'm going to try and recap 2 weeks in this update. So hopefully I will be pretty quick with it. So looking at Georgetown for the last 2 weeks, the 1 week we had 4 sales and then the next week we had 9 sales. So in total over the last 2 weeks, we've only seen 13 sales in Georgetown, which is very low. That would be a normal-ish week that we would see in a regular market. So over the last 2 weeks, not a lot of sales happening in Georgetown. The worst news is that between the 2 weeks, we had 29 new listings. We had 11 1 week and 18 the next. So quite a lot of new listings are hitting the market and not a lot of stuff is selling. And this is just the trend that we are continuing to see. So looking at Acton had 6 sales over the last 2 weeks, which is not high, but it's a fine number for Acton. Things are still moving there. The sort of saving grace in Acton is that there hasn't been a lot of new inventory. So there was only 3 new listings in Acton over the course of the last 2 weeks. So inventory is actually down in Acton, which is kind of a change, especially considering where Georgetown levels are currently at. In Glen Williams for the last 2 weeks, we had no sales and there was 3 new listings over the last 2 weeks. And that is a sort of high number, I guess. We don't usually see that many, and some of them are higher price points as usual in the Glen. So those won't be moving too quickly, but not a lot in general happening in the Glen, especially in terms of sales. And there are some lower price point stuff still sitting in the Glen, so that's interesting. Usually those would be flying, so it's just showing what the market's doing right now. And absolutely nothing happened in Limehouse, no sales, no new listings. The rural market saw 3 sales over the last 2 weeks, which is good that some stuff is still moving in the rural market, and there was only 4 new listings. So that's, I guess, sort of good news for the rural market, because we were seeing quite a lot of new listings hitting the market there, and inventory was sort of skyrocketing. So to see 3 sales and 4 new listings is good news, I guess, for there. Georgetown is really the market that's starting to feel the pinch of what's happening. And then I'm not going to dive into the numbers because they're way too big in terms of properties that came off the market, relisted, all of that stuff. We did have quite a few properties come off the market, but the far majority of properties that terminated and relisted in the last 2 weeks were adjusting their price downward. And the biggest pocket that is feeling that is 1 to 1.5 million. The far majority of properties that came off the market and relisted at lower prices were in that pocket, and some of them were dropping by like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So really interesting to see what's happening with pricing here, but it's definitely not good news for sellers. Just sheer supply and demand. We have so much product available right now, and the buyers are just really hesitant. The exact same thing happened last fall, so this is really interesting. So looking at our active inventory now, when I left, we were at 203 active listings. We are up to 216 active listings. So this inventory is just super high. Last year, our peak was in the 190s. So we're at 216 now, and I don't think it's gonna slow down. It feels like we'll never see like 250, like that feels like that would have been out of reach for us. But if we keep climbing week after week and the sales just aren't there, 250 could be something we start to see in Halton Hills, which seems so insane. Prices will be in a really bad spot if we hit anywhere near those numbers. Georgetown, it was at 126. We are up to 137 active listings in Georgetown. The interesting thing, this isn't the highest that we've seen. We've been in the 140s before, but it is definitely climbing, and there is just, it feels like there is so much available. When we look at our active price points, under 800,000 went up from 11 to 14 active listings. We have quite a lot of our condo townhouses and condo apartments for sale, but there's a couple of freehold properties under the 800,000 mark that aren't moving either. So just a lot of stuff available under 800,000. Normally that price point sits pretty low. Another price point that normally sits low but is sitting very high is our 8 to 1 million. So 800 to a million right now is up to 31 active listings. That's the highest I've ever seen in that pocket. That is usually the pocket that is flying. We have so much much stuff available, especially 3-story townhouses. I feel like of those 31, there's got to be like, I don't know, 12 to 15 of them that are like 3-story townhouse options. There's tons of townhouse options available. The interesting thing with townhouses is a lot of them in town offer quite a bit of space. But yeah, when prices come down, they're just kind of the units that, if you can get a detached house, a lot of people are more willing to buy a detached house with a yard than they are to get that little bit of extra space that you'd get in those townhouses. So that price point sitting high is very bad news overall, because that is usually our price point that sits low and it moves, but that's not happening right now. And then 1 to 1.5 million, yikes. Highest we've ever seen. We are at 61 active listings in that price point. It's almost split halfway. So it's like 30 listings are 1 to 1.25, and then 31 listings are 125 to 1.5. So we're almost split halfway there. But to have 61 listings in that price point is really bad for sellers. There are so many properties to choose from when you are a buyer, and at the end of the day, there are sellers out there that have to sell, and so inevitably that causes pricing to come down. And a lot of the movement we're seeing in terms of price reductions are in that pocket, because the people just are not willing to spend the money on those houses right now. So if you're a seller in that price point, like, you are not alone in the fact that A, you're not selling, and B, you're not getting probably a ton of showings, and you're going to be getting offers that are much lower than where you're listed, just given the nature of what's happening on the market. And then 1.5 million plus is actually down. That is down from 36 to 32 active listings. We saw a couple of properties come from that pocket and go into the 1 to 1.5 million pocket. So again, those prices are softening too. People just aren't going to spend $2 million on a subdivision home. Like, it's just not going to happen right now. So really interesting numbers in Georgetown. It is definitely the place that is feeling the negative effects of what's happening in our market right now. Acton is down from 27 to 23 active listings, so that has softened a bit. I'm, I guess, surprised, but not really, because there's some really low price point stuff in Acton, and that's really the main thing that's moving right now. Glen Williams is up from 5 to 9 active listings, so that's sitting pretty high in Glen Williams, and like I touched on, a lot of them are higher price properties which just aren't going to move as rapidly, so that's just gonna probably be sitting there for a bit. Limehouse remained the same at 3, and the rural market is up to 44 from 43. So just a slight jump, but it is sitting very high in comparison to where we would normally be sitting in terms of the rural inventory. So overall, the market update this week, which is actually for 2 weeks, reflects exactly where we thought the market was going to be, exactly what we thought the market was going to do, or at least I thought. I don't know where prices are going to fall this month, but last October we went under $1 million average price point in Halton Hills. I suspect that may be the case, but realistically, like, the first half of the month, we only saw 22 sales ish. So where our units are not, they're just not moving right now. So if you're a seller, not great news, but you're kind of not alone in the fact that, like, it really is dead out there. And if you can get an offer on your house, work with that, take that really seriously, because not a lot of buyers are willing to just pull the trigger on buying properties right now. So I'll be back next Tuesday to see what happens. Have a great week, everyone.